Ever order something online and, that kind of thrill when it shows up at your door? Safe and sound. Well, we're about to unpack that hidden world that makes it happen.
A world most people don't even think about.
You got it. The world of freight inspection.
Hmm.
We're using RoleCatcher's career guide today, going deep on freight inspectors.
And it's not just what they do.
Right, exactly. It's like, why is this role so much more interesting, crucial than you'd think? Ready for a deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's jump in. I think what often gets missed is behind every purchase, every part in our phone.
Every item on a store shelf, even.
Yes,
Yep.
it's traveled a crazy complex journey to get there. Freight inspectors. They're the unsung heroes keeping it all on track.
Okay, so picture this.
Yeah.
You hear freight inspector, what pops into your head?
I bet it's not glamorous.
Right. Like dimly lit warehouse. Someone's got a clipboard, that official-looking stamp.
Probably a lot of paperwork, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But get this. Freight inspectors, they're not just stuck in warehouses. Think bustling shipping yards.
Huge transportation hubs, absolutely.
And they're even using, like, cutting-edge tech to make sure everything's legit.
It's way more dynamic than people realize.
Yeah.
And the knowledge base, forget just local regulations.
They're talking national, international.
It's a global perspective you need, especially now with supply chains being so interconnected.
It's like being a detective, but on a global marketplace scale. And speaking of which, RoleCatcher, they break the career path down into these stages. Entry level, then junior inspector, all the way up to senior inspector. They even have these example profile things.
Real people describing their day-to-day, it's fascinating.
Totally. And what struck me is how the role changes as you move up. You start with the basics, inspecting, securing, paperwork.
The nuts and bolts.
But then it becomes less about checking boxes, more about the bigger picture, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. You start to see the patterns, the connections.
RoleCatcher's example for a junior inspector, it really clicked for me. This person, they're not just inspecting, they're managing, documenting shipments, working across teams.
Problem solving. That's where it really kicks in.
Even helping to come up with better procedures. It's impressive.
And then at that senior level, overseeing the crazy complex shipments, making sure everything lines up with, well, the whole world's rules, basically.
Mentoring the newer folks, too. Passing on that knowledge. It's like,
A lineage. It shows how much continuous learning this field demands.
which, let's be real, that's a skill everyone can use, right?
Yeah.
No matter what you do. Regulations change, tech changes, you got to keep up.
More than keeping up, it's staying ahead.
Exactly. Adapting, anticipating. But okay, so we've established this isn't your average inspection gig. Let's talk about the skills that make a freight inspector tick. Attention to detail, that's a given. But then RoleCatcher hits us with this curveball in their functions and core abilities. Get this. 57% of a freight inspector's job, according to RoleCatcher, is active listening.
Which makes total sense when you really think about it.
It's not just about the stuff.
No, it's the people, the stories behind it all.
Okay, yeah.
A freight inspector, they're talking to shippers, carriers, customs. It's like a whole orchestra of perspectives they got to get in tune with.
Wow, never thought of it that way. But it gets even crazier. Psychology. 59%. What's that about?
All right, so picture this. A shipment comes in from, who knows, overseas somewhere. Paperwork looks good on the surface.
But something's off.
Exactly. Maybe it's the shipper acting weird or inconsistencies in the documents.
Or even just like hesitation when you ask them a question.
That's it. That's where understanding how people act is huge for a freight inspector.
So it's like they're not just inspecting cargo, they're inspecting the people too.
You got it. Reading people, spotting those subtle signs.
Like a detective trying to crack the case of, is this shipment on the up and up?
Exactly. And it's not always about catching the bad guys either. Sometimes it's about understanding like cultural differences, how people communicate.
The unspoken rules of international shipping.
Exactly. Those unspoken rules can make or break a shipment.
Wild. And speaking of global stuff, RoleCatcher, they also highlight geography as a key skill.
Which, I mean, at first you might think, well, duh.
Right, like obviously you got to know where stuff's going.
But they go deeper than that. Think about it. A freight inspector's geography knowledge. It's not just knowing point A to point B. They got to understand the routes, the potential holdups.
Weather, even.
Oh, absolutely. Weather patterns, political situations, anything that could mess with the shipment along the way. It's like they have this whole world map in their head, and it's constantly updating.
So we're talking detail-oriented, tech-savvy, but also a smooth talker, a bit of a psychologist, and a geography whiz. That's a lot.
It's a unique combo for sure.
It really is. But here's the thing. These skills, they're not just for the freight world, are they? RoleCatcher makes this point that's like, when you understand the skills behind any job, any role.
It gives you an edge anywhere.
Exactly. It's like that saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. But in this case, it's show someone the skills of a freight inspector.
And they're set for any career.
Okay, maybe not any career, but you get the idea. It's about those transferable skills, the core abilities that apply across industries.
Active listening, communication, critical thinking.
Problem solving, thinking outside the box. Those are the building blocks.
No matter what you want to do. And that's where RoleCatcher's job search advice comes in. They're all about helping you spot those skills in yourself, whether you're aiming for a promotion
or a total career 180.
Exactly. They help you connect the dots between your experience and what employers want, even if it doesn't seem obvious at first.
Okay, so we've done skills, career paths.
Yeah.
But what about the future of freight inspection? RoleCatcher mentions these technology advances changing the game.
Yeah, and tech is revolutionizing everything in logistics. Freight inspection's no different. We're talking next-level scanning equipment, the kind that can practically see through a container.
Whoa.
Real-time tracking to know exactly where stuff is every second. Even AI and machine learning to spot problems before they happen.
Okay, so robot overlords coming for the freight inspector's jobs. Is that what we're saying?
That's the big question, right? Lots of industries are dealing with this. And yeah, automation's going to change things. Some tasks, they might be done by robots someday. But to completely replace humans...
You don't think so?
Not anytime soon, at least not entirely.
Phew. So what's it going to look like then? Humans and robots, like working side by side in some futuristic shipping container situation.
Maybe. But really, think about the stuff that still needs human judgment. Intuition, being able to adapt on the fly.
Making a tough call when things are unclear.
That's it. Or building relationships. You can't automate that.
There's that saying, you can't automate a handshake.
Exactly. And in this case, it's more like you can't automate that gut feeling when a shipment seems fishy.
So tech is going to reshape things, but it's more about helping freight inspectors, not replacing them.
Freeing them up to focus on the bigger picture stuff, the things AI can't do yet.
Makes sense. Speaking of the future, what's the job outlook look like for aspiring freight inspectors? Should they be, like, brushing up on their robot whispering skills or something?
The good news is the industry's booming. Global trade's growing. Online shopping's not slowing down. So yeah, they need more skilled freight inspectors.
Not a bad career choice then. But even if this isn't, your dream job, it feels like understanding these trends.
Yeah.
It's a window into how the world's changing at a much bigger level.
100%. It's about making those connections between what seems like a niche job
and the huge economic forces affecting everyone.
Whether we realize it or not, we're all part of this giant global network. And freight inspectors, they're vital for keeping it all running.
And speaking of connections, gotta love how RoleCatcher walks the walk with their own AI-powered job hunting tools. It's like they're saying, we don't just talk about using tech in the job market, we actually built it.
Exactly. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. Using technology to make things easier, give people more power in their careers. I love that.
It's like they're saying, we're all in this together, let's figure it out. Okay, so we've covered a lot here. From dusty warehouses to, like, futuristic robots and the future of work.
And we've seen how a job that seems kind of ordinary
Can actually be super complex, connected to the whole world, full of surprises.
It's all about looking beneath the surface.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of freight inspection, gotta leave you with something to think about. We've talked about the technical stuff, the global side, even like how much psychology is involved. But what about the human side of all this? At the end of the day, it's people stuff we're talking about.
It's a good point. We get so caught up in the logistics, the rules.
Right.
But yeah, behind every shipment, there are actual people, their livelihoods, their dreams, even their survival sometimes.
And that's where it gets kind of heavy,
Yeah.
When those human stories clash with the, like, cold, hard realities of global trade.
Exactly. RoleCatcher, they don't get into specific ethical dilemmas or anything, but they do emphasize integrity, professional judgment.
Because it's easy to just focus on checking the boxes, following the rules.
But a good freight inspector, they got to see the bigger picture, the human impact of what they're doing.
This is not just knowing the rules, but knowing when to, I don't know, bend them a little. Or at least when to ask the tough questions.
Think of it like this. What if there's a shipment of, say, medicine? It's held up for a tiny paperwork mistake. Or a small business owner, They're depending on one container to make a deadline.
Their whole business is on the line.
Exactly. That's when a freight inspector's judgment, their empathy, it can make all the difference.
It's like a superpower almost, seeing not just what's in the shipping containers, but how it affects people's lives all over the world.
And being able to navigate those situations fairly, transparently, doing the right thing even when it's hard, that's being a pro.
It makes you realize, even with all the tech, globalization, that human element, that connection responsibility, it's more important than ever.
Couldn't agree more. And it's a lesson for everyone, really, not just this one job. Seeing the human side of things, working with integrity and empathy, it's what makes the world go round. Or, well, in this case, it's what keeps the world shipping round.
Well played. So next time you're about to hit that Order Now button, take a second to think about that whole hidden network that makes it happen. The ships, the planes, the trucks, and of course, the freight inspectors, those guardians of goods, making sure your stuff arrives safe and sound.
And if you want to learn more about this world, whether it's a career path for you or just, curiosity, definitely check out RoleCatcher. They've got a ton of info on this stuff.
It's been eye-opening, that's for sure. And that's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive, taking something ordinary and finding the extraordinary underneath. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those packages moving.